Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope everyone is staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today, we've got a bit of an interesting sort of video and topic that I want to talk about, and that is the problem with Stormcast. So, first of all, let's start with who are the Stormcast Eternals and when were they introduced to us? So, the Stormcast Eternals are mighty warriors picked up from the brink of death by Sigmar Heldenhammer, the God King himself, to serve as his immortal agents across the mortal realms, waging war in his name. They are heroes of countless battles and valiant warriors long before they are Stormcast Eternals, and their souls are reforged into these monstrosities of arcane magic and ritual that you see before you. The Stormcast Eternals were originally introduced to us in the start of the Age of Sigmar, and you can say that their very being is why we have the Age of Sigmar. These warriors of both men and women, both genders, warriors that we just wouldn't have the Age of Sigmar we have now without. They were the focal point on the initial release. They're in the original starter box. They're in the current starter box as well. They're very much front and center, and probably the most important faction in the whole of the in the whole of the Mortal Realms. They push the story in all the different directions and are involved in everything, whether you see it or not. The Stormcast have something to do with it. So, why then is there a problem with Stormcast? Are they overexposed? Are they any of these sort of things? Any negative? Well, not really a negative like that per se. My single biggest problem with Stormcast is that they don't feel like Stormcast on the table. We read stories from Black Library in our army books and hear audio dramas and hear the creators of the game and the lore talk about how Stormcast are these mighty heroes, every one of them a hero in their own right, capable of defeating tyrants by themselves. I mean, we just need to go to the story of like how Vandus Hammerhand was found as a human. He stood toe to toe with what might very well have been Corgus Cool, and he was then defeated and brought back as a Stormcast Eternal, and later did defeat Cool in the original Realmgate Wars battles. If that is indeed the whole story, I mean, it's a fun part of Stormcast to have that whole, is this what happened in their past life? Are they really seeing their own memories, etc.? It's a really cool thing about Stormcast. But back on track, they don't feel like that on the table when you're playing games of them. And so, I've been thinking like this about Stormcast for a while. And I started talking to my friends about the recent point changes. There's of course been leaks of all that sort of stuff, and you can go find them. I'm not going to talk about them here. But certain units were dropped, and we'll talk about one of them that was dropped, and this one was revealed by Games Workshop anyway, and that was Liberators. Now, Liberators got dropped some points, and they were already 100 points, and when Age of Sigmar came out, that seemed like the right place for Liberators. They were that baseline of everything was based off where a Liberator, and at the time, a Chaos Warrior stood at 100 points. So, what's changed since then? Well, obviously the game has evolved and changed a lot over that time. And where the Stormcast seemed really strong at the start of Age of Sigmar, they don't really seem that strong anymore. They don't feel like those mighty warriors on the table at all, even though they have some really cool, fun, fluffy narrative rules that do sort of try and push along this line. They're just basic sort of stat line, and they're places that sort of basic person inside Age of Sigmar harms them in a way that they can't sort of shake at the moment. Because everything was, you could almost say, sort of based off the Liberator, as it was this 100-point mark of, is it better or worse than a Liberator? The game's changed since then, and lots of things are better than Liberators now. And my question is, should they be? Should Liberators be the level playing, the middle ground of, are you better or worse than a Liberator, when a Liberator should be well on the upper echelons of what is good in the Mortal Realms? Liberators should be able to go toe to toe with any unit in the game and potentially come out on top against most of them, because it's what they do in the narrative. The heroes feel lackluster. I look at things like And of course, there's an over-exaggeration, but things like Light of Eltharion and Gotrek, and I'm like, why don't Stormcast Eternal heroes fight like this? Because that's exactly how they should fight. It's how they sound in the lore. And I get that there's always discrepancies between what happens in the lore and what happens on the table. In 40k, Space Marines have always had that issue, although I think this has been addressed a lot in more recent times. So the question is, how do we change Stormcast, really, and stop this problem with Stormcast being a problem? When you get into the game of Age of Sigmar, you generally are going to start with Stormcast. A lot of people do, and you can disagree with that, whatever, but I'm pretty sure the vast majority of people get into the game with some Stormcast Eternal models. It's certainly what I see running the big Facebook groups. Nearly, I would say, at least 5 out of every 10 people that I see going, I've just started Age of Sigmar, have bought the starter set and have painted up the Stormcast Eternals first. Now, because of this, like, they're going to read the lore and learn about the Stormcast and read up that they're these mighty warriors, and then they're going to put them on the tabletop, and they just won't feel like that at all. Like I was mentioning, there are particular rules that really do push the feeling of what they should be doing on the tabletop, like the Liberator's ability of Lay Low the Tyrants, getting +1 to hit against enemy units with 5 or more wounds. It's a really cool, fluffy narrative rule, and really does show you what a Liberator should be doing. They should be liberating the mortal realms. There are certain Stormcast armies over times that have done really well in tournaments and have fought really well. We, of course, can all remember the Vanguard Wing. That's a little bit before my competitive time, but I know the gist of what it does. And then things like Gav Bomb and even Shootcast at the moment, or Staunchcast. Now, Staunchcast is probably the most out of any of those lists that fight like Stormcast does, and Gav Bomb is pretty close there as well. Although with more modern Stormcast units, and Gav Bomb at the moment doesn't do as well as it used to, just due to the current nature of the game. I think where the potential for making Stormcast better lies is have them win that war of attrition. They don't necessarily need to go up in damaging power. They can put out a surprising amount of damage. Their problem is they're just not survivable at all, like they should be. These things in the narrative hold lines against untold thousands times their own number. So I think the way to make Stormcast play like Stormcast is to have them be that tough. You don't necessarily need to, and maybe, you don't need to necessarily have them be the most damaging army in the game, but I think a defensive sort of boost to them would be going a long way to making them play like they feel. And you can, of course, have like units like Liberators and Sequitors that are supposed to be your hold the line infantry, do that sort of thing, and then potentially boost your combat potential of units like Paladins, aka Retributors, Evocators, Vanguard Paladors, and even your Extremis Chamber stuff like the Dracothian Guard, to be the hammer and really play a hammer and anvil style army with Stormcast. I think this is the way to go. It fits the narrative. I mean, I remember I forget the name of the novel now, but you have the one with Tarsus Bullheart fighting alongside Manfred, where you have the Liberators hold the line, and then what they'll do is they'll open up their ranks and allow the Retributors and Decimators and Protectors to go through and do the damage into parts where they section off in their line. This is how Stormcast should play. They should be that hammer and anvil style army and really be able to take the punishment with these basic troops. So this is going to go back to points, and we've just seen points drops in a lot of units. Liberators being a name one. I don't think Liberators should have dropped in points. I mean, I get for the moment that they probably have to, on their current war scroll, have to be dropped in points on their current war scroll, but I think when we redo Stormcast, that the Liberator and many of the other Stormcast war scrolls, especially the older ones from the Warrior Chamber, even the Extremis Chamber to a little bit, and really all of them, really, I'm going to say Vanguard Auxiliary and Sacrosanct as well. I think the war scrolls need to be redone at this point. I think we need to make these models better. I would be gladly happy to pay 200 points, and I'm serious when I mean 200 points for 5 Liberators. If those Liberators fought like they did in the narrative, I would pay 400 points for some Evocators if they fought like they did in the narrative. I'm not. I look at the Lumineth Realm laws that have just come out, and we've seen a whole bunch of the rules on them and how they get these amazing defensive buffs. And I look at Stormcast and I'm like, that's what they should be doing. They should be fighting like this. They should be just have these defensive rules that really make them hard to shift. They don't necessarily need to be fast moving, but they have fast moving access units, and this ups the value of things like Vanguard Paladors, Prosecutors, which are a fantastic model and just don't see the table. It's a real shame. Prosecutors, like when everyone got that first starter set, they were the ones that everyone were like, these are gorgeous models. I really wish Prosecutors saw the table more. But I think that sort of giving defensive buffs and then having some units that strike out as hammers and fast moving pieces is how we progress with Stormcast in the future. Now, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, and do you think this is a problem with Stormcast? Am I thinking along like, should an army play like the narrative? It's, to me, what the game is all about, and I want my Stormcast to feel like Stormcast on the table. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about all of this, so please leave them in the comments down below. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you all very much for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Sinful Gaming channel on YouTube. Every subscription helps us grow more and more, and we're thankful for everyone who does subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to go down in the links down below and follow our Twitch channel, of which we do streaming of both model building, painting, and our role-playing games. And also, don't forget to jump on our Discord server, also linked down below. We can come chat with me and other members of Sinful Gaming and our community, which is utterly fantastic and filled with such wonderful people. And you should find that link down in the description down below as well. And lastly, if you wish to support the channel more like these lovely people on screen have, you can join our Patreon and help support the channel. We'd like to shout out a special thanks to everyone who supports our channel on Patreon. You guys are absolutely fantastic. So a special mention to all the Sinful Guard Militia members, Christian Weir, Soren, Philip Ward, and Chaos Spawn, and our Sinful Free Guild Regiment member James. You guys are all amazing. Thank you all for supporting the channel so well. And if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't get as much enjoyment out of this as I does. And that goes for everyone. Whether you like a video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, or simply watch some videos and don't do anything more than that. You guys are all amazing. Thank you very much. And we'll see you all again real soon. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey.